Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Sarah from Handmade After Dark. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Australia and welcome to Funfold Friday. So this is a new monthly series that I'll be putting up on Friday evenings. Most of the time they will be pre-recorded videos, but I will do live videos where I can. And each month it will be a different Funfold. And I'll show you how to make one and also show one, maybe two extra variations using the same fold. And also, so the following week, when I send out my weekly newsletter on the Wednesday, it will contain a project recipe for the Funfold. So for those who aren't familiar with the difference between a tutorial and a project recipe, it's essentially the tutorial minus the detailed instructions. So you'll have photos, all the products used, and the measurements, just not the detailed instructions because those are in the video. And for many Funfolds, it's actually, some of them can be quite difficult to write well so that they make sense. The video is much easier. So those will be sent out the Wednesday following the video. So if you head over to my blog at handmadeafterdark.com.au and sign up to my newsletter, then you'll get the monthly project recipes plus everything else that I send out. And at the moment, the 12 Weeks of Christmas series is running, so you will be getting those videos and tutorials as well. Alright, so for this month's video, I am doing a shutter card. So when you open it up, and you see the grading. So I really like these. Now, you'll notice there's not a lot of room to write your message. You can add some basic white cardstock down the side to write your message. You could do it on the back. But if you're like me and you struggle with what to write on the cards, these can be quite helpful because there's not a lot of room, so you can't write too much. But I really like these cards. They're really cute. And you can also, rather than stamping a sentiment in the center, you can also have your message written there. Now, just to be aware, the measurements, because I'm in Australia, the measurements are based on our cardstock size, which is A4. So if you're in the US or Canada, you will need to adjust the measurements, particularly for the shutter components. That's the main part that you will need to be careful with adjusting, but these are based on A4 card base size. So the main products I'm using for this one are the Gingerbread Man bundle. So we have the stamp set, so it's a photopolymer stamp set. And then the dies, it's quite a big set of dies because if we open up, you've got all the extra little bits and pieces for the Gingerbread Man, the hat, the candy cane, the candy pieces, lollipops, all the rest of it, plus various eyes and mouth and icing versions. But you've also got the large gingerbread man, so you can make shaped gingerbread man cards from these. So for this card, I just cut one of these and then just cut down the middle, and that, because that one is the straight edge, that's the side I put the candy cane on, so you can't tell that it's not around it. And you can also just round it yourself if you don't want to have anything covering that side. All right, just get these out of the way to give us some room. So for the base, we start with a standard card base, and then we want to score essentially on the long side at 5.25 centimeters, which is not the easiest measurement to do. But if you aim, let me zoom in a little bit, see how close I can get. So 5.25 is not the easiest, but if you aim for the first line after the 2-inch mark, so that very first line, which is 2 1/16, that is about as close a guide to 5.25 as you're going to get. It's not exact, you want to go make sure you're just over it, but that's about as close as you'll get if you need a guide. So we're going to score, and I'll just flip it around and do the other side. So score that on both sides. And then we need to do some more scoring, so we may as well do it now. For these pieces, now I ran out of the red paper, or the cherry cobbler, so I've gone with Old Olive for this one. So now these are, they're not quite square, so it's in inches, it's 3.5 by 3 3/4. I'll have the centimeters in the written tutorial. Let me just zoom out a bit so you can actually see my desk and space properly. So we want to score, make sure, and I've got one that I have already done so I can double check. On the longer side, we want to score at 1.3 centimeters or thereabouts. It's about, half an inch. So 1.3 is the closest we can get. All right, then what we want to do, and I'm going to flip it over because I'm going to make some markings on the back, and then we want to score both sides at about 4.5, sorry, not score, make markings at about 4.5 centimeters in. Just make sure that on this side that you've scored that you're going 4.5 centimeters from the outside. If you happen to be doing it from this side, it's 4.5 from the score line. So I'm just going to come into here, and if you have a mechanical pencil where you can make the lead a bit longer, you can actually fit that in the gap where the blade goes along here, which makes it much easier than trying to do it and keep it straight without the guide in place. So we have very rough markings. They don't have to be perfect, and these aren't going to be seen. So we will get our snips, and we just want to cut on each side from the corner to the point where those where the two lines meet. Now you might see on this one I've got two. That's because the first one I messed up and I went from this side and didn't factor in the score line. So it's the closer one that I want. And we'll do the same on the other one. Don't worry too much if it's not exactly perfect. It should be fine as long as it's sort of close enough. That one's going to be a bit wonky. You should be fine. So they are going to form the shutter component. Okay, so let's put those to the side for the moment, and we need to do a bit of die cutting, but before we do that, we need to adhere these two pieces together. So I'm just going to check that I have cut them correctly. They all look good. So we will stick these down, and I'm going to, not that it matters too much, I'm going to try and avoid sort of roughly where the die cutting is going to be, but it's not crucial. It doesn't matter too much. So stick that down, just want a slight border on each side. And then, so we need to die cut the circle from the center. So bring in my cut and emboss, and I'm using the Stylish Shapes dies, and this is the third largest, and we want to place it as close to the center as we can, because that's where we want it to sit. So just make sure you're happy with the placement, and then we'll run it through. Do I need to go again? No, it should be all good. If you find it's not cutting completely through, just run it through again. I often go forwards and back, and that usually means it goes through as it should, just because you've got a little bit extra because you've got 2 layers there, but it should be fine. So now we can start putting this together. I have put most of the gingerbread man together just to save a little bit of time. If you don't want to do all the little kind of finicky die cut pieces, you can always heat emboss with the stamp set instead. So we can put gingerbread man to the side because we don't need him just yet, and we will start with, and I'm just going to, just to make it a bit easier, we will start with the strips. And we'll just add some adhesive to all of those. Stick them down. So we're going inside and outside for these pieces, and I have done these with a very thin border, which is one of the reasons I'm using the green glue to stick it down, just so I've got that little bit extra wriggle room to get everything in place before it sticks permanently. So those are the front pieces. And we'll go to the inside. Same again on the inside. Stick these down. Get them lined up. Okay. Alrighty, now for this piece we are going to add dimensionals at the top and at the bottom. I've taken the backing off one. Stick that over there for now. Not that it really matters. All right. And I'll just put that to the side for the moment because we don't want to stick that down just yet, but we will roughly get, we want to line everything up, make sure everything is in place because we want to stick these down first. So for these, you want the scored section to be against the score line. So easiest way is to line it up on this side and then fold that over. So I'm going to just add, and you could also use tear and tape for this section. So I'm going to get that, work out where I need that, make sure it's centered or as close to centered as I can get, excuse my head. Fold that over, press down firmly. And there is your first one. And then we will do the same thing on the other side. So you want to make sure it lines up with the first one. So line it up right against the score line. Make sure it's aligned with the other piece. Fold that over, press down firmly, and then press it down again, and you should be good. So we want our sentiment to be in the middle because we want to make sure that when the card is fully opened, and you can make your sentiment piece bigger if you want to, if you're not sure that it's, you know, you want to be extra careful that you're not going to see gaps when it opens, but this looks fine. I'm just going to see if I can slightly adjust that. So that's about where we want that to stick. So I will add some adhesive. I'm going to just, I'm not going to press it down properly just yet because I want to make sure that when it's fully opened that it's where I want it. I'm going to slide it across ever so slightly. looks good. So now I'm happy with that, so we press that down. Then we take the backings off one end, so let's fold that over. And you also want to, and I have messed this up a bit, I have made this a bit, let's just check if it works better. That looks better. So do check before you stick everything down, because you do want to make sure it aligns with your die cut piece. And I forgot to do that, but if I flip it around, that works much better. So, and I took the top end off, that's fine. Let's get these off. So you want to make sure that this lines up with the bottom of your card base. And press that down. So that looks good. I'm happy with that. Now, if you find, and it's quite difficult to see here, but if you don't like the little bits overhanging, you can trim those off, which is what I did on this one, because no one's going to see the edges. They're not going to see that it's that they've been cut, and they're not, you haven't got the pointed edge, so you can cut those off, or you can leave them because you're not going to see them when the card is open. And particularly with this one, it kind of blends in, so it's quite difficult to see it anyway, but that is totally up to you. And then all we need to do is add our gingerbread man. So he's going in the center, so just make sure that you only add the adhesive on one side and make sure it's the correct side. So we make sure we've got enough there, place him in the center, and we'll just open it up, make sure I haven't got any extra adhesive overhanging. That looks good. And then we are going to add the candy cane. And then all we need to add is embellishments. So I'm using the peppermints, the cherry cobbler peppermints. So I'm just going to grab a few of these. And there we have it. That is how you make a shutter card. And so the other one that I made, I used the Elegant Pine snowflakes, and I really love the paper in this one. So I used Secret Sea and Pretty Peacock, and for the snowflake I used Pretty Peacock, Garden Green, and Old Olive for the stamp. So I inked it up in Old Olive, and then I got Sponge Dauber with Pretty Peacock, went around the top, around the edges, and then I got the Garden Green, went around the middle, so that way I could get sort of different colours on the same stamp. So that is the second one. All right. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the projects. I hope you have a go. If you do, please share what you've made. I would love to see what you come up with. And remember, if you want the project recipe with all the measurements, head over to my blog at handmadeafterdark.com.au and sign up to my newsletter, and you will get the project recipe for this and all future Frontfold Friday projects and all the other stuff that I send out as well. All right, so thank you for joining me. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye.